So, a lot of you guys were surprised when I said that I had never played Super Mario Galaxy 2 before, and the short answer is simple. I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber. But the long answer is a bit more twisted and intertwined with what my gaming tastes were at the time. I was a day one Nintendo Wii adopter, and I did enjoy my time with the system, but over time, I definitely kind of soured on the whole motion control thing. When motion controls were done right, it was a fun experience. When motion controls were kind of tacked onto a game, I felt, such as a platformer, it felt a bit more tedious. It was kind of like, well, why are we doing motion controls here? Like, I get it, you're trying to use the strengths of the system, but a game like The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, I never finished that game on the Wii because I was over motion controls. So with Super Mario Galaxy 2, as much as I loved Super Mario Galaxy 1, it was a skip for me. I was playing other consoles and I had moved on from the Nintendo Wii. Now obviously, Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2 have been released on the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2. We've talked in depth about some changes that were allegedly done in terms of the graphics. We've talked about the price point of the game, but how are the games themselves? I can't tell you how Super Mario Galaxy 1's version is because I'm not buying that again. I own that on 3D All-Stars. That is good enough for me, but I did decide to pick up Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Nintendo Switch 2. Yes, at $40, I'm part of the problem, but I did want to talk about the game because I feel like people would be interested in what I have to say about it. Now, I haven't completed the game or anything like that. I've gone through the first few worlds of the game, and I definitely have some things I want to say about it. Super Mario Galaxy 2 builds upon what Super Mario Galaxy 1 did, but I think it does it in kind of a different manner. One of the main things that I noticed is kind of how the hub world from Super Mario Galaxy 1 is no longer a thing in the sequel. Instead, they kind of went with a bit more of a streamlined experience, like the levels are just kind of laid out to you and you choose them with a cursor. I think that's fine. You know, it kind of makes everything easier instead of having to run around a hub in order to get to the next area. You could just simply do that. One of the big additions to this game was, of course, the inclusion of Yoshi, everyone's favorite prehistoric creature. Now, honestly, in the first few worlds, you really don't play as Yoshi all that much, which I thought was kind of interesting. I figured he would play like a bigger role in this, and maybe in the latter few worlds he does. But for the most part, you know, playing as Yoshi was mostly fine. You know, it does add another layer of challenge and a layer of different strategy because obviously Yoshi can eat things and stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting enough. Of course, you have a story in the game. I mean, Bowser, he kidnaps Princess Peach. You know, some top-notch writing from Nintendo here, but I'm willing to give them a pass. It's worked since the dawn of Super Mario Brothers. Why change what isn't necessarily broken? Although by now it is kind of a broken thing, but it's fine. You're not playing this game for a narrative, you're playing the game for the gameplay. And the gameplay is pretty similar to Super Mario Galaxy with some changes, primarily in terms of the aforementioned Yoshi, and of course new types of power-ups. The new power-ups are all fine that I've been messing around with. I think they're cool. They obviously play into levels and stuff like that, where you're now being able to make clouds when you jump, and you jump up higher and you put a cloud underneath you and stuff like that. It's interesting enough. The levels themselves are, of course, very creative because it's kind of piggybacking off of what Super Mario Odyssey 1 did, and really by extension Super Mario 64, because Super Mario 64 just kind of opened up the doors as far as what you could do with different levels in a game. It didn't necessarily need to be like a set pattern, like here's the ice world and here's the desert world and stuff like that. It definitely was just more so like here's whatever we want because you're in this big castle. Obviously, Super Mario Galaxy expanded upon that when it was taken into outer freaking space, and of course this game, it does capitalize that on that as well. You'll want to replay levels for additional challenges and additional stars. You need a certain number of stars before you can get into the next section of levels and stuff like that. It's all pretty common stuff, but, you know, I do enjoy the level creativity that I've experienced thus far. There's been lots of different sorts of things and lots of things where, you know, you'll have the little Luma stars where they need a certain amount of bits or they need a certain amount of coins and they can transform, and then that's something else within the level. So it's definitely worth going back and replaying some levels, even though you kind of have to do that in order to get enough stars to get to the next area. The boss battles that I've encountered thus far have been pretty solid as well. You know, usual pattern-based stuff, look for the weak point, so on and so forth. But there's a lot of creativity in the game, and I think that is something to be applauded. I also really like the soundtrack of the game. I think it's very well done, and honestly, to me, it's kind of surprising that I haven't really heard, like, many people ever talk about this soundtrack. I don't know, maybe that's just a conversation that I tuned out of, but it's definitely a soundtrack that has been kind of sticking with me, you know, almost like a little bit of a Mario Paint vibe with some of the tunes, and it is something that I have been enjoying. Now, I am playing this game on the Nintendo Switch 2, which means I get 4K visuals, 60 frames per second, the best visual experience that I can get for Super Mario Galaxy 2 on a console right now. And I think the game looks good. You know, obviously, at the end of the day, it's still a Wii game. There are high resolutions going into this game. Everything does look a bit upscaled, and Mario himself looks nice. The enemy characters look nice. They're all animated and have a lot of things going on. And of course, the level creativity definitely lends itself to this visual style, as the art style of the game definitely does hold up. But here's where I have the first of my two issues with this game, and that is primarily there's a weird artifacting or shimmer, I don't even know what you would call it, on a lot of surfaces in the game, and I'm going to kind of show you it here, and maybe I'll slow the video down a bit, but like these lines, they just protrude, and I think some people might not even notice it. But once you notice it, you can't really unnotice it. I noticed it in handheld mode, and I was kind of like, huh, all right. Well, I wonder if that's a thing in docked mode. And then, obviously, I'm recording this footage in docked mode. So, yes, it still is a prevalent thing. Now, it's not the end of the world or anything like that, but I did find it a bit distracting, and, you know, once you kind of see it, it's hard to unnotice it, and it did detract a little bit from my experience with the game. But my biggest issue with this game is definitely a personal issue, and that has to do with the controls, because I have not talked about the controls whatsoever. And now, going into this game, I was hopeful that this was going to be a Skyward Sword style situation. Skyward Sword, of course, came to the Nintendo Switch. They added in a new control scheme, and it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But for me, it got the job done, and I was able to play and finish that game, and I enjoyed my time with the game. Super Mario Galaxy 2, it kind of tries to do something with that, where you press ZR and you get an on-screen little thing that you can move around with gyro controls to, instead of using a single Joy-Con to kind of be the pointer. But it honestly doesn't work very well at all if it's a level in which you're using Yoshi, or that is requiring you to do something where you're constantly having to grab certain things, because that's kind of your grab mechanism. So like sometimes I would use this standard control scheme, quote unquote standard, and it would work okay. Like if it was in a heavy platforming section, I'm like, great, I don't need to do the single Joy-Con. But then certain instances of the game were drastically better when I used a single Joy-Con instead of trying to do the control scheme that is, you know, put into the game to kind of circumvent what you have going on with it. At the end of the day, I think most people are going to want to play it exactly like the Wii game was, and I guess that's fine, but like to me it's just like isn't there another option? Like, I get it, you know, the R stick utilizes the camera in the game, but the camera is pretty fixed in a lot of these levels. Like, yes, you can adjust it in certain levels and stuff like that, but if there was an option to like give that up and then use the R stick to be the on-screen pointer instead of using gyro controls, I think that would have worked very nice for this game. And, you know, it's just an option. It's something that you don't have to do, but if you want to do it, you can, because really at the end of the day, more often than not, the game plays better with a single Joy-Con being the kind of IR pointer and then using another Joy-Con in your hand to move and control Mario as far as the jumping is concerned. And I guess I was just kind of hopeful that, you know, there would be something else. Like even the mouse controls that were said to be in the game, the mouse controls are for a second person. So it doesn't even help in that sort of regard. And I just feel like, to me, that kind of holds the game back a little bit. Like, I am having fun with the game. I am enjoying the game. I think for the most part, besides the weird ground effect that I find it strange that not many people talked about this, because how the hell do you not notice it? You know, I do think the game looks nice. I do think the game plays mostly well for the most part. But it definitely does feel a little bit, you know, just kind of half-assed. Like, you know, it's still, the core game itself is still really enjoyable. The core game itself is definitely a fun game. But I also feel like it's definitely a product of the times. There's a reason why motion controls never became the full-on standard. It was always an optional thing. You know, once people got over the allure of the original Wii, there's a reason why the Legend of Zelda games on the Nintendo DS that relied strictly on the touchscreen are considered to be some of the lower entries in there. I do applaud Nintendo for being creative and stuff like that, but creativity doesn't necessarily, you know, work all that great all of the time. And to me, this would have been a better game with just standard controls and focusing more so on the physics. Now, I'm not dogging your favorite childhood game. I'm just simply telling you how playing this game for the first time in 2025 feels. It is an enjoyable game, but there's definitely some things I would have changed because it does hold back the enjoyment a little bit for me. Let me know in the comment section down below, though. Am I completely wrong and this is the greatest controlling and greatest looking game ever? And for $40, it is a steal, and I should be thanking Nintendo for allowing me to play this game on my Nintendo Switch 2. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit that bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.